Hi guys, and welcome back to Pass the Move, and for today's episode we've got the Leverkusen game in this Dortmund series. We're in 10th place, which looks worse than it is actually in truth. We've got a game in hand on these other teams that are above us, but we do play Leverkusen, who are also above us, obviously in 4th place, and that's kind of the gap. We're only 4 points away, and that's why probably the board are being a bit patient with me. But yeah, just 4 points. If we win today, that closes the gap to 1 point, and we can climb as high as 7th. 6 would be nice as well, of course, but we need to score against Leverkusen at least 7 goals probably. But yeah, Bayern's still undefeated, and I hope to defeat them when we come up against them soon enough. But otherwise, title's kind of out of our reach. It's really just Champions League football, and in terms of the second spot, that's 34 points, so it's still just 6 points away, so it's very doable, especially if we beat the teams above us here, and we can do that here today. So in terms of what happened since the last episode, a bit of a mixed bag of form. So I think we showed you the Hoffenheim game, and we tried to get revenge on them in the German Cup third round, but unfortunately they beat us in extra time with some ridiculous goals. In truth, Barta opened the scoring for us. Gnabry scored in the 83rd minute to just destroy all our hopes. I was considering going into contain, but I thought throughout the match they didn't actually threaten us at all, so it just didn't make sense to go into contain that much. I suppose I should have learnt my lesson from the last game where we played them here, but unfortunately it means we're knocked out of the German Cup. The board are obviously very unhappy because it's a bit of an early time to get knocked out, but you know, when it goes into extra time, anything can really happen. I had a couple of friendlies here, they didn't go too well, but my assistant manager was managing them anyways, and obviously friendlies, you can't read into them too much. Just a way to make a bit of money, keep the players fit through that little winter break there. Against Hertha, we bounced back with a 2-1 win. We can't seem to keep any clean sheets, particularly in the last few moments of the game. Aubameyang with the brace, but Selke managed to score in the 93rd minute, just to make things a hint uncomfortable for us. Against Frankfurt, it's really a case of not taking our chances. I know that doesn't really make sense because we scored in the 57th minute through Marco Reus, who's returned from his injury, but it's more of a case of we had plenty more clear-cut chances and got punished for Frankfurt's, and they didn't actually even have any chances in truth. No clear-cut chances or half chances according to the match engine, and they just managed to score through a regular old shot in the 88th minute. My players are struggling to see out games and stay focused. But anyways, Leverkusen is the big one. We're in 28th of Jan at the moment, so the transfer window is still open. We have had some ins and outs, more ins and outs in truth, but just to have a quick look, a couple of players have moved on. So in terms of the actual date, it's through the January transfer windows. You have 3 loans out: Zagadou, Fritsch and Patrick, I'm just going to say. So 2 Patricks are out, they've gone out on loan. And it's just a case of youngsters getting some game time. It was mainly the main one, which is Schürrle to Shangang for 15.75 million. He was just a player we couldn't afford to hold on to anymore, and in fact his wages has doubled since he's moved to China, so fair play to him. But yeah, 27 years of age, we've got youngsters who are have potential to be better than him, or are obviously the same ability as well. We had, I think, Maxime Philipp, who's a leading player for most first division sides already, the same as Schürrle, and he has potential to improve even further. So it made sense to cut ties on the 27-year-old prime player. I would have loved to have kept him, but not only does he not fit into our tactics that we're trying to build towards eventually, but also that you know, he was on incredibly high wages for a player who's always going to be a backup, since Yarmolenko and Reus are obviously our first choice options. In terms of ins, a couple of them and a couple of decent ones. So obviously these ones happened in the summer. These are the ones, these 3 here: Wallace, Rulam and Mbeba are the players that we brought in. So this fee over here, they all do look quite high numbers, but in truth is we paid half of these up front, and half of them are going to be paid over 3 intervals of 12 months. So 48 months we're going to be paying the other half. So if you say 15 million was spent on Wallace up front, and then 15 million over a 48-month period, which is obviously 3 years. So in truth, this is, don't really consider the final amount that we paid for them. Obviously we are paying for it, but it's just over such a huge length of time that's basically pennies. It doesn't really matter at that point. But yeah, some really good investments. Wallace is a player who can definitely improve for us. Brazilian, I think he'll start to get some caps since he's moved to us. A very good player, a resolute personality helps us too. And he's just a backup centre-back who can eventually overtake Papastopoulos, and a very good rotational option for us to have. Apparently he's a leading player. When we scouted him, he was just a good player with potential to become leading. But it's good to see him already on leading, and he could possibly become a star player for the division. Mbeba's likewise, but he's going to be considered the backup for the ball-playing defender. He's lacking in terms of aggression and vision, but I'm hoping as he ages he'll improve, he's worth 20 million now as well. Came from Newcastle. Has plenty of potential. I think good player for most first division sides, capable of being a leading one, and very good backup to Barter. So it's just a question of improving the squad depth that we had. Now obviously we did it in defense because that's where we needed most of our depth, but really in terms of balance, we need a better balance in midfield now more than in our defense. William was just a first choice left back. We're still looking for a backup one. He's a leading player. I think Lars Ricken's still getting to know him a little bit, but he does have a hint of potential, I think, as well. But anyways, when we bought him, he's a leading player for most first division sides, so he's an improvement on our current player. We still do have some players that we want to move on, but definitely our first choice left back, better than Schmelzer and better than Park Joo-ho, or Jo-ho, or whatever you want to call him, the Korean. I think he's Korean anyways, please don't tell me I'm mistaken. Yeah, South Korea. So yes, that's just kind of it. Just really improving the overall depth of our squad. We needed better backup players, and we'll also try to move on some other players. So we got Onatelli finally managing to sell him off. Balint here is still not managing to get sold or even loaned out. Park is bidded on from Nürnberg for the end of his contract, so we won't be able to actually sell him by the looks of it, but as long as he's out of our wages by the end of the season, that's good enough. Toprak's been bidded on by Manchester City, of all teams. A bit surprising that Pep Guardiola is still going for him, and I did check, he is still their manager, but we are getting his values worth in the 60k wages off as well. So we basically just replaced him with a better backup option. He's only considered a good player for most first division sides. He's not going to improve. He's complaining about first team football, obviously, so it just made sense to replace him with someone like Mbeba, or also he wasn't a ball playing defender either, and we're looking to get a ball playing defender. He's not like Mbeba or Wallace, who are better backup options and who have potential to become our first team players. Eric Durm is another player we're struggling to get rid of, but hopefully we will. If not now, then possibly in the summer as well. We're trying to loan him out as well. There's some interest in him from Hertha and Kiel, but unfortunately neither of them are actually making any bids. We sent Subotic down to the under-23s because he's another player who's being signed at the end of his contract by another club. He's already been confirmed, so he'll be moving to this team here, and Rhodes still out on his loan, and that's kind of it in terms of transfers. So I think we can kick off. Weinfeller and where is he? Berkey are still struggling to being moved on as well, but Weinfeller's contract ends in the end of the season anyways, and we're looking to bring in a better backup goalkeeper to Rulli, a youngster with potential who can compete with Rulli for game time. At the moment, Roman Weinfeller only considered a decent player for most first division sides. I think actually we'll replace him with Berkey. He's supposed to be a better player, a good player for most first division sides. Let's do that. And if we can't sell either one of them, might as well use the one who's better in terms of ability. But that's kind of it. I think we can go ahead and start with today's game. A huge fixture. We're at home. Both teams' forms are apparently inconsistent, but yeah, the key will be, of course, the performance on the pitch at the moment. So yeah, let's kick off. Apparently a couple of squad numbers. Let's just auto number that and let the players warm up. We can talk more about who's starting and why, but the usual thing really is they're either out because of injuries or they're out. I don't think we have any real injuries at the moment in truth, but they're out because of form or fitness. Royce came into the side and he did decently, but he dropped off a little bit, so we brought in Philip instead. Yarmolenko, of course, always starting, as well as Aubameyang. Gutsen, Kagawa and Castro are our first choice midfield, so it's good to see them start. Our backup players in Mbeba and Wallace are playing. Mbeba and Ghulam are actually going to be making their debut, and we do have a full strength defense as well as a goalkeeper, so we should be okay. And we quite have a full strength squad other than Maxim Philip filling in for Marco Reus. He's on the bench anyways if we need him, but yeah, Papastopoulos and Barter aren't having the greatest of seasons together, and let's see if Wallace and Mbeba can do better. Playing with a 4-4-2, which is tough to face against in the FM18 or any real football manager in truth. I can never seem to get 4-4-2s working, but whenever I face them it's always difficult. But I'm hoping our extra man in midfield can help us, and we can hopefully exploit some weaknesses in this Bayer Leverkusen side. We're going to have a quick look at the tactics, but let's just get rid of this team talk first. Apparently we are the favourites and we should be winning this. I don't think we're actually favourites. I think that's just an option. I think we should go with the revenge option. Let's fire up some of the players too. And there you go. They look perfectly ready apparently. But anyways, let's have a quick look at the tactics, make sure everyone's okay. Philip is an inside forward, Yarmolenko, Aubameyang. Everyone's sorted in truth. Beba is the ball playing defender. Wallace should be comfortable as a central defender. Neither of them have side preferences, so that's good. Rulli is a sweeper keeper and we should be okay to get going. Let's kick off. Alright, I wonder how this key game goes. Hoffenheim was a very important one and we lost it off camera. It was another team who were above us. If we won, we would have gotten into Europa League spots just like we would have today, you know. If we do win, we get into 7th. But if we won against Hoffenheim, we actually would have gone into 6th. It would have made today's fixture even more important. But we're just going to have to deal with, you know, obviously how... just deal with the reality of it, of course. So... we need a win anyways. We need to put a good winning run together, and even though the tactic has helped, it has definitely improved our squad. We can't expect every single time to win every single game. That's going to come with time. Gutser though finds Philip in the box. Can he finish? He finds Wallace instead, and he couldn't place it well enough, and Leno can knock that over, and that's our first clear-cut chance of the game. And we'll have to do better and take our chances. Castro has another opportunity to deliver into the box. Good ball, Wallace rises, but it's Bailey who's going to get his team away on the counter. We're going to have to end this threat early before they can make it develop. Instead, no one's necessarily chasing Bellarabi down. He's got an opportunity to put his own cross in, but Golam does well. And that's a weird way to end the highlight, because for a second the Leverkusen looked like they were incredibly dangerous. Golam did well to put the tackle in, but it bounced in their favour. And you would assume they would have scored from there, but thankfully whatever happened there was not good enough for a highlight. Let's zoom in a little bit. Alright, Castro, our deep line playmaker, playing in defensive midfield. I've moved some players around. Guerrero is actually a central midfielder now. He's playing as a backup to Kagawa, who's a central midfielder on attack. I think Guerrero can do that job quite well. But like I mentioned, a serious lack of balance. And if we continue having defensive mistakes, even with a defensive midfielder... Ooh, Kagawa almost placing that really well. We will have to actually consider doing some things that I don't necessarily like. I don't like having the tactical instruction of playing a higher line or a deeper line, because I like my players to make their own decision making, which happens if you leave it on sometimes. I feel like if you play a deeper line, you let if you're playing against a team who are playing with a strong or powerful striker, then they can seriously take advantage of a deeper line, because they don't have to rely on their... Oh, good sir, such a well placed shot. They don't have to rely on their pace, because you know your team's playing a deep line anyways, and they can use their strength and their power to great effect. Whereas obviously if you play a high line, then you're exposing them, so that's obviously helpful. But if you're playing a higher line, then teams who play with the pacey striker, they can, you know, do some serious damage against you. So obviously the teams you face against, they have different types of strikers. So if you have a high line, you'll be exposed sometimes. If you have a deep line, you'll be exposed sometimes. But I feel like if you have it on the tactical instruction on sometimes, then your players, if they're smart enough, obviously, they'll, you know, make the correct decision in either pushing the line up high or pushing the line deep. We're playing an offside trap, so that naturally makes us a hint higher than normal. It doesn't actually show in the tactical instruction, but you can just see that your players are a bit confident with the offside trap, you know, the defensive line. You know, in general, I want them to make the decisions themselves. So far though, 8 shots, 6 on target. We can definitely be more, you know, could have scored more than just a single goal. But we come into halftime with a decent lead. We'll have to build on that. And that's exactly what I'm going to tell my players, that we can do better. We've done well, but let's improve. We're at home, so I can be a bit strict with them as well. Yarmolenko's a bit injured. I don't want to risk it, so we'll bring on Marco Reus. We'll move Philip to the left, to the right wing actually, and change him into a striker. I'd rather have Reus in his preferred role and bring out the best out of him. Philip is a great player, but you know, I want to bring out the best out of our best. Obviously, he's not better than Reus, so that's just as simple as it comes. Also, playing on a winger obviously helps us. He might not be his most natural role, but yeah. Also considered, obviously, since we're eventually trying to build to a 4-2-3-1 of 2 defensive midfielders, and we need the ball-winning midfielders, I seriously considered moving some players on, bringing in ball-winning midfielders and trying to find players who are suited to the roaming playmaker role, because unfortunately none of our actual current central midfielders are suited for it. Moving Kagawa and Götze back to the attacking midfield role would be great, or position actually, and that would help. But obviously one of them will have to be a backup to the other, and the likelihood is it's Kagawa to Götze who's going to be Kagawa's going to be the backup. So yeah, I was considering doing that, but I feel like we have too much talent in the squad at the moment that I can't necessarily sell anyone off and justify selling them. Not to the fans, but just to myself, because they're talented players, of course, and players with a bunch of potential. So I think we'll have to move to that sort of formation and tactic very gradually. We've got a ton of inside forwards as well when we need wingers instead. So it's going to be a very gradual process. And Kagawa, who's supposed to be a central midfielder on attack, that's supposed to be able to finish. He has very good finishing in truth. I think he's 13 or 14, a very decent attribute for a central midfielder. He's missed 2 important chances, and you'd expect Leverkusen to punish us for it, especially with this highlight here. Bailey, though, quite easily finds Havertz. Götze finally wakes up, but Wallace cuts the pass out, and that's exactly the kind of defending I want to see. And Kagawa safely to Royce. What can an inside forward do? Aubameyang on the ball, dropping a bit too deep for my liking for a poacher, and his passing is put into question with that horrible ball back into Leverkusen. Bellarabi for his team. Don't shut him down enough, but thankfully Wallace heads that away, and Kagawa can send Aubameyang through. Can he use his pace to full effect? Safely to Royce, the smart option, catches the goalkeeper coming out for that sweeper keeper role, I suppose. If he's not actually a sweeper keeper and he's doing that, I would be a very mad manager. But the good news is, Royce extends our lead. We're going to get a beautiful view of this through pass from Kagawa. What a ball that is. Aubameyang can just run through them quite easily. He's just really intelligent to actually find Royce there instead of going for himself. Obviously, if he finds Royce and Royce misses, you'd blame Aubameyang for not taking the shot. But it all works out in the end, and we're 2-0 up, and you wouldn't assume that we would lose from this position. Maximilian Philipp is having a horrible game apparently. No one to necessarily take him off for on the bench. We'll try and see if he can turn his form around. No one necessarily tired either. To be honest, Philipp should be the player to go off, but I've already made a substitution for Yarmolenko, who's injured. Could probably take put on Guerrero, but I just want to stick to players playing in the positions unless some huge thing happens, like Philipp gets injured, for example. If it's forced, I'll do it. Otherwise, no real need. 2-0 up. Philipp's performance can improve as well. He's not doing something below a 6 rating, for example, where you'd absolutely have to take him off. He's just having a bit of a poor game. Still continuing as well. Let's see if there's anyone tired, deserving to come off. Just Kagawa and Castro, so let's make those changes. Guerrero on that central midfield role as well. And Weigl, just call him Julian, coming off Castro. And that should shore up everything in our midfield as well. And hopefully hold things together, since my players have a tendency to lose concentration. I picked the wrong one there. Where's the shout? Concentrate. Normally I don't even do this, to be honest, say concentrate to my teams, but the way we concede so often, I think it's been such a theme, an ongoing theme on our team, of conceding within the last 10 minutes of a game. I feel like I had to tell them to focus. It's good to see Wallace and Mbeba, and even Fozli Golam, have a good average rating, especially Golam and Mbeba, who have both just made the debuts. So it's apparently really good debuts, and we can hope to see more of them. Vidal, the only player who's struggling apparently, and to be honest, he's not been one of our best buys. I think hopefully next season we'll see him a better version of him, as the whole team adjusts to new tactics, and of course he adjusts to new surroundings. Not every player that you sign will immediately become a key player, so hopefully next season he would have been over that transitional period and can start to perform consistently well for us. But it's great to see us back in winning ways against Leverkusen, and that sends us up to 7th and really closes the gap between ourselves and obviously Leverkusen themselves, but also to the Champions League spots, and we can seriously start to put some serious pressure on these teams who are above us. And it's probably why the board haven't necessarily fired me yet. The points is too close to each other, and if we just put a small winning run, we can seriously become Champions League candidates once more, and next season we can definitely challenge for the title if we sort ourselves out and have a better start than this season. Actually, we had a good start, to be fair, we just didn't perform well. But yeah, Europa League, We dipped after the start of the season, what I'm trying to say. Europa League spots at the moment. Let's have a quick look at the table now that we've played. I think everyone's played their 20 games. Hoffenheim, who they haven't played, Wolfsburg. And if they win, that doesn't affect us anyways. So 31 points. If we win our next game and hope any of these teams here drop their points up to Köln as well. So it's very likely that at least one of these 5 here will drop something, even if they just draw. Then we can climb above them into Champions League spots and start to prove our worth again. BMG was supposed to be one of the teams who are in the Champions League with us. Leverkusen as well. But BMG have had an incredibly horrible season. They've already fired the manager and hired someone else. Marcus, you can have a quick look at his history, see what kind of manager they've hired. But it's surprising that he hasn't managed to turn it around yet. He's had about 2 seasons. I guess that's not too much, but you'd assume that he would have some type of immediate effect. Brought over from Schalke. Schalke manager. Who's Schalke got now then? Domenico Tedesco. Oh, a young German manager. Interesting. Who's he managed? Oh, he's quite unproven. It's a bit of a weird... But either way, that's other people's business. In terms of when we'll be back, it's obviously February. We have to pick a February fixture. But since we're playing in the Champions League against Chelsea, we've shown Bayern already in the Super Cup, so I don't want to show that again. But maybe showing you the first leg of the Chelsea game will be interesting, and maybe in March we can show you the Champions League as well. We've finally met expectations. It'll be interesting to see if we can beat this London club, a very tough team of course to face off against. But we do have huge fixtures against BMG, Wolfsburg, Bayern, very big teams, Mainz as well. Hamburg are, for example, in the Champions League spots already, Hanover in the Europa League spots, so huge games. I feel like I'd love to show one of these ones, but we might as well make the most out of these Champions League games and maybe start showing you, the first division football once more a little bit further down the line when we're actually meeting expectations maybe. But yeah, good to see us climb up the table a bit more, and hopefully we can continue doing that. And yeah, if Aubameyang's in good form, anything can really happen. So yeah, I think that's all for today's episode. If you did enjoy it, then of course please do hit the like button and subscribe for more daily Football Manager 2018 content. And as always guys, thank you all very much for watching.